Are you coming up? You've got Blue's Clues. Yeah. You've got Bluey. That's not Blue's Clues. That's Bluey, isn't it? You want to sit by me? You can sit by me. Thank you for scooting over, Brett. Sage, you brought what was in this bag, right? Yes? And the youth who looked at it, Xander and Everly, said, "You're never going to get this one." So are you going to open it up and show me what's in there? Yes? Here. I will help. There you go. Reach on in. Oh my goodness! It's a pumpkin! Kaiba wants to eat it. She's so funny. So pumpkins remind us of fall, right? And what do you like to... And what?
Princess Peach.
Yeah, you're going to be Princess Peach for Halloween. Yeah. And Halloween is in October. And during the month of October, we get ready to make our budget for next year. So today, we are going to talk about why it is important to give money to the church. Yeah. So why do you think some people put money in the offering plate? To give to the church. Why else? Why would you give to the church? Are you putting money in the offering plate? No. Why? Do you have a job?
No.
No? Do you get an allowance? Yeah? Kind of. Well, maybe you could put some of that allowance in the offering plate, because where does the offering plate money go?
To the church.
In my pocket. I collect it every Sunday and put it in my pocket. No, because if I did that, we wouldn't have enough money for all the wonderful things we do. So what are some things that we pay for? Electricity! That's what we think of most often, right? Yeah, electricity. What else? Water bill. See, we think of the building, which is good because, yeah, we just had the carpets cleaned. We just had, if you hadn't noticed, the awnings. We took them down so that they could get repaired and cleaned because we need a building for us to place our needs, which is very important. But it's also very important that we have the ministries like youth group so we can go on mission trips and stuff. So this week, today, we are going to celebrate all of the ministries that our money goes to help and all of the people that we're going to help. So I'm glad you brought a pumpkin, and I'm glad you're going to be Princess Peach and get a lot of candy, yeah? But we can also think, as we're celebrating Halloween and Sammy Palooza, and because it's my birthday month, so we have Sammy Palooza. Yeah, I know. It was also your puppy's birthday, huh? Zoe's birthday?
Yeah.
So it's Zoe Palooza, and maybe we could give some of that Palooza money back to the church.
Zoe's 5.
Zoe's 5?
Yeah.
Yeah? Will you guys pray with me today? God, help us. And what? Oh, yeah. So God, please help us as we prayerfully think about how much money we're going to give to First Lutheran Church this year. Help us to know what is the best way for us to show our care and support of First Lutheran. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, can I have the bag back? You can have the pumpkin. You can have that. Hey, thank you. All right, so guess who gets the bag for next week? Jonathan McLean. All right, Jonathan, last year you brought Buddha. It's not like I forget things. So we'll see what you bring this year. So as we said, October is the month that is Pledge Month. Now, don't shut off your computers or your televisions. Don't space out, because we are, yes, going to talk about how much money we give to the church. But what we're really going to talk about during the month of October is our faith and how we care for our church. So sometimes that's money. But like we said in the youth, if you don't have a job and if you don't get an allowance from your parents, or let's say you have astronomical student loans, then maybe it's not as easy to give money. So we also can give our time, which we're going to talk about next week. And then the week after, the youth are going to help us think about what are our skills and how can we use our skills to care for our church, to care for First Lutheran Church. So it's not just about money, but giving to our church is an act of faith, and it helps us to care for God's church. So that is important, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next 3 weeks. So please don't think, I'm not coming because I don't want to talk about money. I don't want to come in the month of October because I don't want to feel guilty. That's not what this is about. As we said in the prayer or in the children's chat, your giving is between you and God. So I don't look at the pledge cards, and I don't know how much each and every one of you gives to this church, because that's between you and God. It's an act of faith, and it's how you are caring for God's church, which is First Lutheran Church. So as we said in the children's chat, when we think about giving, the thing we think about the most is the building. So I have a slide. Because if you look at the building, do you remember when we had Niagara Falls in the chapel? That was, Nyla and Janelle were here for that. So that meant we had to fix the roof and we had to fix the ceiling of the chapel. So there are repairs that we have to do, but then there's also preventative stuff. So yes, a lot of our giving goes to the upkeep and repair of our building and to our building fund, because we do have a loan for the 2011 edition. So we know that. Yes, that's where some of our money goes. It also goes to utilities, right? Lights, air conditioning, all of that stuff. And then the next slide, we have the administration. These are all boring, right? Building. The biggest one here is not the paper or the office supplies. It's the insurance. But we have to have that insurance and that building fund to, as we said in the children's chat, have a place for our children to play sardines. Well, maybe not just that. To have Altar Guild, to have all of those wonderful ministries that this building helps us to do. And some of those ministries are our social media ministry. Our social media ministry, it helps us to market this church. So friends, I got to look at my stuff because I don't have the numbers memorized. When I started in 3 years ago, we had to redo our entire Facebook page. So we started out with 0 Facebook followers. We now have 2.8 thousand, and we're close to 2.9. When I started, we had about 20 Facebook or YouTube subscribers. We now have 94. When I started, we did not have an Instagram page. Now we have 30 followers, and it's growing every day. So we are getting on the map when it comes to social media, which is really exciting because nowadays that's how we get our name out there so that we can do what we're called to do, which is spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and spread the welcoming and inclusive church that we are. So that's where some of our money goes. The next is our online worship experience. And I know you remember when our Black Magic went out last year and we had to get a brand new one that cost $3,000. And I know you remember that old booth that we had where people would lean up against it and then would fall down because that desk thing rolled. Well, thank God that I talked to Jonathan in the mall, because now we have Jonathan McLean, who does a phenomenal job in our online worship. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for all you do. He told me this morning, why do I have to be a part of this? Because Jonathan is an important part of our online ministry. So those of you who are online, I encourage you to prayerfully consider giving a donation this year and being a part of our pledge drive to help pay for our technology, our microphones, our online worship service, and most importantly, Jonathan. Yeah. So continuing, we also have worship art. And we have a lot of fun with our worship art that helps us to further engage the different sermon series that we do, especially during Christmas and Easter. So then next, we have our wonderful music ministry, which I love how supportive of each other they are with all of their beanies. But we have bell choir, we have our praise team, and we have Addie. So part of our online giving helps us to have a wonderful music director that is Addie Gabriel. So thank you so much for your ministry, Addie. And speaking of the praise team, do you know that they get their own pot of coffee every Sunday morning? So some of your giving goes to coffee. Coffee and goodies and all of those wonderful things that we have after worship. And we especially thank the donations of time and money of Janelle and Nyla, who put on all of those wonderful parties that we have after worship. So thank you too. So the nectar of Lutherans, we know, is coffee. So that's part of the money that we give supports that ministry. We also have book studies, which we talked about in our announcements, and Bible studies. And so we buy all those books, and some people donate that money back, and some don't. And that's okay, because that's a part of our ministry. And our goal this last year was to have 4 Tuesday night book discussions. So we're going to continue to have those Christian education opportunities, which you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 weekly and 1 monthly. We have a lot, which is exactly what God calls us to do. So that's where our money goes, into that ministry. And then we have our wonderful youth ministry. This year was the first year the youth that we have right now went on a mission trip. And that was funded by the donations that you have given to the youth. We also have Sunday night youth group every week. And then we have once a month a youth group event. So last week it was Sundays at the Newmans, like ice cream Sundays. So that money went to pay for supplies for games, supplies for Bible study, supplies for youth group. When we go to the lake, Addie's Lake, we always bring some fun food there too. So a lot of that money that you give goes to our youth group. And last, but certainly not least, is our service. A lot of our giving goes to feeding those who need help. So every month, money goes to support the Haven House, where we serve, and we also serve at the Open Door Food Kitchen. We also support Youth Alliance with money. We support The Crossing with money. We support Imagine 11. We support many, many of our organizations here in St. Joseph with our money, with our giving. And we also support, as we all know, our synod that then sends that money out throughout Missouri and Kansas and to our church-wide, which takes that money out into the world. So I wanted to celebrate today, instead of telling us, we need money, and make us say, I feel guilty and I don't want to come back in October. I'll wait till November. Let's celebrate the things that our money does, not only to support First Lutheran Church, but also to support St. Joseph, Missouri, the state of Missouri, and goes throughout the world. And that is why every year during the month of October, we have Pledge Month, where we prayerfully consider what God is calling us to give. That's funny. Jonathan! So it's tempting to think that if we give to the church, then God's going to reward us, right? And when we think about the story about Elijah and the widow, it's easy to think, okay, if we give a little bit like that widow, then God will give us enough until the drought is over. So if I give a little bit of money, then all of my money issues will go away if I just give money to the church. And man, I wish it worked that way. But let's look at that story, because when we think about it, this widow was just collecting sticks at the gate of the city. All of a sudden, this stranger came up to her and said, "Hey, give me some food." She didn't know who this guy was. And so she looks at him and says, in verse 12, by your God, I cannot give you food because I only have enough left for one meal for my son and myself, and then I know we're going to die. So I can't give it to you. By your God. So this woman does not necessarily believe in the God of Israel. By your God. And then Elijah says, yes, by my God, I promise. And if we read the very, very last verse, it says, and God spoke the words through Elijah. So God called this woman's heart. Somehow, this woman had faith in the God of Israel. That was not her God. But somehow, she had faith enough to say, okay, I'm going to trust that if I feed you, there'll be enough left for me and my son. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to have faith in your God, and I'm going to help. So when we think about it, it's not about how much that woman gave. It's about why she gave. She gave because she believed in the God of Israel. And she believed that if she gave that food, that God would help her. That's what it's about. It's not about how much. If I give this amount, God will give me this amount. It's about what God is calling you to give. God called this woman to give Elijah the food. It doesn't make sense why she gave it to Elijah, but that's what her heart said that God was calling her to do. So it's not about how much. It's about why we give. And that's the same in the next widow story that talks about the widow who gave 2 coins. And it says that she gave everything she had to God. Is that what God is calling us to give? I had a pastor in one of the churches I served in my past, and we were putting together a pledge campaign. And he said, let's call it Give Till It Hurts. And the idea of giving till it hurts is that we should give so much that eventually throughout the year, we should feel that sacrifice. We should feel that pain because we don't have enough. I love your face because yes, it doesn't make sense. God is not asking us to give everything we have, right? It's not about the amount we give. It's about why we give. If God calls us to give everything we have, who am I to say that God is wrong? But it's not about how much the widow gave. Because if we read before that story, it talks about rich people. Now, can I just say, rich people are not bad. I also had a pastor say, if I was rich, I would never come to church. Because it feels like it always says, the Bible always says, rich people are bad. No. It talks about people who happen to be rich, and why are they giving? Because they want to look good. These specific group of rich people have come to the synagogue, and they have given a lot, and they're making sure everybody sees it. It's almost like when you bring 100 pennies to church and drop them in the offering plate so everyone can see how much you're giving. Right? Exactly. It's not about how much you give. It's about why you give it. Are you giving it to make yourself feel better than everybody else? Are you giving it so everybody thinks that you are amazing? You are amazing whether you give everything you own or not, because you are a child of God. But it is our faith that tells us that we are to give to support God's church, to support youth group, to support our neighbors who are hungry and need help. It is our faith that tells us we are to give to a building that houses Bible studies, book studies, Phoebe's Circle, Altar Guild, birthdays, everything we do in this space. It is out of our faith that we give. So this month, I am asking us to prayerfully consider what we want to give out of our faith and what we want to give to our church, which is First Lutheran. So this week, I want us to specifically think about money, because let's be honest, we need money. So those of you who are online, I ask you to do the same thing, to prayerfully consider what you can give to support our online ministry this year and all of the other wonderful ministries First Lutheran does. And the same with all of us. So you can get your pledge cards here at the church. You can get them in the back of the church on your way out, and just hold them in your hands and prayerfully consider. This week, we're talking about money. Next week, we'll talk about time. And there'll be a place on the pledge card where you can write down what time you're going to give to God's church. And then, finally, the youth are going to help us discern our gifts, our talents, and how we can use those in our Youth Sunday. And the last Sunday of October happens to be Reformation. So wear your red and bring your pledge cards, because that's when we're going to pray over them and ask God to do what God needs to do with that money and lead us into God's ministry and God's direction. So again, don't forget this week to prayerfully consider how much money you're going to give to First Lutheran out of faith to care for God's church. Amen.